policy. This is something we've been talking about for about two or 3 months now. So I believe that I'd like to hear the staff report, and I know we have somebody who'd like to present some testimony on this item.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Board President, members of the board. Again, this has been subject to a great deal of review by the Board Finance Committee, as well as discussion with the board at our briefing and actually the business meeting last week, and based on, last month, and based on all of those comments, you see sort of the refined proposal in front of you now. And I just wanted to highlight that there are really 4 key elements of this fund policy now. So you can turn sort of to the very last page of this item with the attachment. Those key elements are that the unrestricted fund balance will be measured by the sum of the projected ending fund balance plus budgeted contingency. So that's what we're measuring here. And also budgeted contingency set at about 3% generally is the rule of thumb of operating requirements. I think for many businesses that would be relatively thin, but I think for a repetitive operating entity like TriMet, we think that that's fine. But there may be issues each and every year that need separate assessment related to contingency, so the policy allows for that. The third main point is that when we establish a budget, the goal will be to develop a budget that has unrestricted fund balance, which includes the unspent contingency, at 2.5 times the average monthly operating expenditure. And again, the prime reason for that is that TriMet's revenue streams, our income, is very variable throughout the year, and we have very big peaks of, for example, federal fund receipts in certain months, and we draw down on that then during the rest of the year. Now, again, in this particular item, this is a goal, and we recognize that things like the Great Recession will occasionally happen, but in that case, we then establish a standard of trying to return to that, even if we can't do it in a particular budget year, within 1 to 3 years, and having a firm plan to achieve that. Finally, it also notes that the unrestricted ending balance each month should be equal to 1 month of average budgeted expenditures. So at any point in time, we don't want to pull down less than 1 month of cash, if you will, in the bank account, given the uncertainty of our revenue flow over the year. So those are really the 4 key parts pieces of this, and what it really allows us to do, should you adopt this, is then use this as we begin to develop our budget over the years ahead and our financial plans for the years ahead, and make sure that we achieve these objectives as we develop those both forecasts and budgets. So with that, staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions.
We have any questions of staff? We do have one individual who'd like to testify on this. Maybe we can hold questions until after we have that. Okay, I have Jared Franz. Jared, we have a copy of your letter to us, but please come on up and highlight what you're saying here. I appreciate you being here. Please, thank you.
President Warner, members of the board, my name is Jared Franz. I'm transit dependent, policy associate at OPAL and Bus Riders Unite. We've met before. I'm here today to express our support for the contingency and unrestricted fund balance, the resolution that you have in front of you. We appreciate that this policy is part of the board's effort to improve the transparency of TriMet's budget process and decision making. And we particularly want to express our appreciation to President Warner for his decision at the last board meeting to delay adoption of this policy so that members of the public will have the opportunity to review it and to offer their comments. We know that the credibility that this board has with the public is a matter of genuine concern for all of its members. And we hope that this policy is an early indication of even greater future efforts to make the agency's budget process more open, permit meaningful public involvement in critical decisions. Unfortunately, this policy comes a little too late to help save the transit riders from the unjust and now demonstrably unnecessary major fare hikes and service cuts that this board approved in June. It's worth noting that the 3% contingency rate contained in this policy suggests the need for only a $15 million contingency fund in this year's budget, which is precisely the contingency amount that Bus Riders Unite was advocating for. We're sophisticated enough, of course, to recognize that the policy contains a good cause exception to this rate, and we fully understand the close relationship between the contingency fund and the agency's cash balances. But it's also very critical to note that when necessary, this policy allows the board to develop and adopt a 3-year plan to bolster the agency's ending fund balance to the preferred level, rather than react prematurely to a speculative budget shortfall with an immediate major fare hike and service cuts. The alleged shortfall that motivated the board's historic June action was based primarily on 3 concerns that Bus Riders Unite repeatedly insisted was unsupported, and time has proven us correct on all 3 counts. Whatever future labor issues remain, TriMet won the interest arbitration with the ATU that was at the heart of the budget crisis. Whatever spin the agency may now attempt to put on the timely distribution of federal funds, the simple fact is that they now expect no reduction in this funding. And whatever measure of cautious optimism that TriMet staff may now have to offer the board, the unreasonably low payroll tax projections used in the FY13 budget have already resulted in TriMet collecting at least $3.6 million more in taxes than it predicted. This, of course, follows a year in which TriMet collected $15.8 million more in payroll taxes than it predicted, despite using a significantly higher expected rate of growth than the one used this year. This is truly a budget crisis that wasn't, and it's a real shame that this board felt compelled to react with haste rather than the prudence that this new policy describes. The question, of course, now becomes how will this board respond to the false crisis that has shaken the public's faith in the board's due diligence? As I've already said, this policy is a good first step, but more is required, and we look forward to helping.